Friends, it is an amazing day and welcome back. We have a heck of a stream planned for us. News popping off all over the place as the election gets closer and closer upon us, and the tubes have connected themselves. That's tremendous. We've got a preview of what we're going to be getting into today before we zoom in and explore the details. But we have a big drop that came out from the Oversight Subcommittee. We've got Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson's text messages. Clavicle Girl is back. We remember Cassidy Hutchinson. They dragged her out after the January 6th series that was assembled by that Hollywood producer and Liz Cheney. After it started to fall flat, it was getting like an 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. Then they had to go get Cassidy. They're like, we need a heroine figure to come out here and really liven things up a bit. So they dragged her out. We had questions about the story from the very beginning about Trump going in and grabbing the Secret Service driver's clavicle. Nobody corroborated it. There were no witnesses. It was all just a big fake propaganda piece. And now the Oversight Subcommittee is out and they've released copies of their text messages. And so we'll go through it. You can see we've got Liz Cheney is coming up in this text message between Alyssa Farah, aka one of the View ladies, and between her and Cassidy Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl. But it's not just her. She was also talking with Liz Cheney. And the problem with this is that Cassidy Hutchinson was represented by a lawyer, and she was talking to the chief investigator, which was Liz Cheney, while she was represented. And then what happened is Liz Cheney got her another lawyer who pro bono represented her. And then the story suddenly changed and emerged, and the rest was history. So the text messages are out. You can see we've assembled them here into a PDF. We'll take a look at all of them. Liz Cheney right there. Cassidy Hutchinson sending a message. Hi, Liz, this is Cassidy. They missed a phone call. Then they ultimately had a phone call. Oh, the story comes out. And Cassidy wrote about this in her book that apparently she got paid money to write for whatever reason. But all these text messages from Alyssa Farah and more that we're going to be reading through here today on the show. So we're excited about that. Remember, Cassidy's name came up a bunch of times back when we were reading through the House report on the January 6th Select Committee. They said that her testimony was not corroborated at all. And so we'll come back and refresh our recollection there. Now, President Trump was out and he was with Bloomberg, and this was a wild interview. It was a lot of fun. Trump was in the zone, and he got asked about January 6th, the so-called insurrection, that they can't stop talking about everywhere we go. It's nonstop with them. They're like broken records. So we have a clip of him having a lot of fun with this dude, and the crowd was on his side over at Bloomberg, and it was a combative interview the entire time. And it should put to bed and put to rest any of those stupid comments that we hear from Kamala and her campaign people who are saying that Trump is not doing adversarial interviews. They did one today, right there. We're looking at it on the screen. So you can go watch that full one, but we got some highlights coming up. Today was also a big day in Georgia because Nathan Wade was being deposed by Congress, and Fani was scrambling to stop certain questions from coming out. Did not want him to testify at all, obviously, but he did show up and did appear for the House deposition. And so we'll read through this to figure out what happened while he was there. But what we'll see is that before he sat down for the depo, Fani was freaking out, trying to block him from testifying. And she fired off a couple letters earlier this week saying the same, sent this one to Jim Jordan, who is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, who is going to be doing the deposition. She emailed it over to him and wrote a big letter saying, you know, we've got legal protections, we've got privileges and separation of powers and all this stuff. So don't ask or expect Nathan Wade to answer any questions about our rigged prosecution against President Trump. So we'll see what she said to Jim Jordan. But she also, look at this, sent a letter to Nathan Wade as well. A love letter to the very man that she was indicting over and over and over again. At late hours of the night, they were sending text messages to each other and so on and so forth. We really like to know what was in those text messages, or rather, we don't want to know what's in those text messages, especially if there's photos. Ugh. All right. So she sent a letter to him, and did she sign this with love? Like, love you, baby. See you later tonight. Did she say love you, or what'd she say? Yours in service. What kind of service, Fani? All right. So, all right. That's what's going on in Georgia. And we'll see what happened there in Fani land, because there's always activities afoot over there. And then more in Georgia, the judge came out, this judge, and said that the Georgia election is basically already certified. It's been practically certified as it stands right now. So it's pretty easy. Yeah, because the election people who certify at the county level, he says they have no discretion on certifying or not certifying, which means it's not really certifying, right? That's kind of the wrong word. It's more like they're just processing the paperwork. They're kind of like clerks. So they don't certify anything. They just kind of stamp things. And so he said that they don't have any discretion. The law requires them to certify things, which doesn't sound like a certification at all. It just sounds like mandatory. Like, you certify something to meet standards and then pass the standards, it's certified, and then it's okay, it's good. But if the county election boards have no discretion to certify anything, I guess that's it. It's already been certified. We haven't had a vote yet. Actually, they have been voting, I think. But the election's not over, and it's already been certified out of Georgia. So you've never seen anything quite like it, but a pre-election order for certification of an election that didn't even happen. Incredible. That's happening out of Georgia. And so we'll read through the opinion. Julie Adams versus Fulton County. And the county of Fulton wins again, of course, because that's how they like it over there in Georgia. So we got that coming up. And then we have another clip of Trump. He talks about Newscomb. He gets corrected on it by this Bloomberg reporter, and it turns into a fun little tiff. But then Trump is saying, look, man, this is what they're doing all over the place. They're trying to skew the electoral infrastructure like they're doing in California, where they are prohibiting people from being able to check IDs at the polls. And so we've got another Trump clip coming up, and we are excited to get into all of it. There's a lot of election litigation that's popping off, and we're glad that you're here and joining us as we go through it all. Now, before we get into any of this business on the day, we've got to talk about something that is very important, which of course is our health and our wellness, because as we know, we live in a pretty advanced age, pretty advanced environment. There's medical breakthroughs, good doctors all over the place. So there's a big question. Why are millions of Americans unhealthy and overweight? I don't know. Well, according to U.S.-based board-certified physician and expert nutritionist, Dr. Amy Lee, one of the main reasons is 3 harmful foods that are being passed off as health foods all over this country. And you're going to want to hear this, because these foods cause weight gain, clog your digestive tract, deplete your energy, wreck your skin. They're banned in other countries, but they're still legal here. And Dr. Amy Lee shines a light on what these items are. She explains the side effects and how they're wreaking havoc on millions of Americans, but you can easily avoid this damage. You just have to know which foods to avoid. And so you can check it out and learn about these foods. You can go to 3harmfulfoods.com/RG. That's the number 3, harmfulfoods.com/RG, or just click on the link down in the description below. Dr. Amy Lee, who you see here on your screen, has a video totally free for you to watch, so you'll never be duped by these terrible foods again. So just check it out, 3harmfulfoods.com/RG. Click the link in the description below and find out what those 3 foods are. And then don't eat them, because they're bad for you. All right, and so thanks to Dr. Lee for supporting our show and for getting us all healthy. All right, so without any further ado, my friends, let's get into the business of the day, because we've got some good stories that we're excited about, including this one. Text messages from Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson, aka Clavicle Girl, have now been revealed. We're going to go through them in detail because we've got them all assembled nicely for our perusal. And there's a bunch of them. Now, it's not just Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl. It's also Alyssa Farah from The View. And she was the liaison between all these parties, between Clavicle Girl and between Liz, because Liz probably shouldn't have been talking to her. Okay, she was a witness in a criminal investigation, which is what Liz Cheney was essentially conducting in Congress, which was not her purview at all to be doing this, but she did. And Cassidy was a prime witness. So somebody else should have been talking to her, because we have a conflict now where Liz might be bringing in Cassidy to change her story to fit her fake propaganda narrative. So Alyssa was going to come in to facilitate the whole thing, and their text messages have now been released. Liz Cheney is included in here as well. They even had phone calls. We're going to come back to this. But where did these records come from? Why is this now popping off and hitting the news? Well, the Oversight Subcommittee has now released these. And the chairman of that subcommittee is Representative Barry Loudermilk, this gentleman you see here. He says, all right, guess what? We've obtained never-before-seen correspondence between the J6 Select Committee and Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson. Says in the months leading up to the Hutchinson explosive testimony, right? This was a big thing. Remember, she came out dressed in white. All the media was like, she's going to come out and she's going to talk about how much of a monster Trump is. And then she invented this whole attack with the clavicle and the Secret Service agent, and Trump is saying, take me to the Capitol. And Melania's commandeering helicopters, and people are hanging off those rope ladders with sniper rifles. The whole thing was like a movie. Turns out it was all nonsense. It was all fictional BS. We'll see. But in the months leading up to this, Cheney secretly communicated with Hutchinson, and she did it directly and indirectly through Alyssa Farah Griffin, despite Cheney knowing doing so was unethical. And Cheney's a lawyer, so she should know that. Now, this all transpired while Hutchinson was still represented by her lawyer called Stephan Passatino. Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl, reached out to Griffin from The View after Hutchinson's second TI and met with Farah Griffin and her Georgetown town home on April 26, 2022. Now, in Hutchinson's book, they tell us, Hutchinson claims that she told Farah Griffin that she had more information to share with the committee, and that Griffin agreed to contact Cheney on Hutchinson's behalf and spent the next month secretly passing information between Cheney and Hutchinson, including scheduling another select committee interview where Hutchinson suddenly came in and testified about new information, right? And we read this. Well, suddenly it came out of nowhere. Clavicle attack. According to never-before-seen text messages, Cheney communicated directly with Hutchinson while Hutchinson was represented by an attorney and while she was a subject of the Select Committee's investigation. Cheney, as a lawyer herself, knew that talking to Hutchinson was unethical, but she did it anyways. And then after Hutchinson's third transcribed interview, Hutchinson reached out to Cheney directly. The two exchanged numerous messages and calls. I'm sure none of that was recorded and documented for us. Ultimately, then, Cheney gave Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl, names of attorneys at Alston and Byrd who agreed to represent Hutchinson free of charge. So Cheney says, come over, tell the truth. We'll get you new lawyers that are not in the Trump side. We'll get you a book deal. We'll get you whatever you need, all paid for. Just need to come in and tell the truth. Hutchinson was still represented by Passatino, which Cheney knew. Cheney, it's like if you're representing a client, right? Lawyers out there, you're a defense attorney, you're representing a client, and the prosecutor comes and talks to your client. Oh my gosh. All right, you lose your maybe your freedom. That's how mad you are over that, right? Cheney had an obligation to refuse any contact with Hutchinson directly and to maintain the integrity of the investigation, right? Shouldn't have been talking to her, but she did because she needed something good. She needed a new story. Her narrative was falling flat. Nobody was buying this garbage. So this report comes over from the Committee on House Administration, and they reported this. They say, we've obtained never-before-seen correspondence. In the months prior to this explosive private and public testimony, they communicated through an intermediary, the View gal Griffin. The Select Committee conducted 6 transcribed interviews of Hutchinson in total. So Liz Cheney's, by the way, illegally constituted committee. They formed the committee through a legislative vehicle called H.R. 503. That required 5 Republicans to be appointed to that in order for it to be a full effectuated committee. It never was. They appointed 2. And the minority party was not consulted when they appointed Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So the whole committee was illegitimate from the beginning. Illegitimate from ground day one. But the media interpreted it as legitimate because they're propagandists. And the Republicans were weak in spreading the narrative or responding to this in any way, shape, or form. Now, the select committee conducted 6 interviews of her in total, and then she flipped her story about halfway through. Pasatino represented Hutchinson for the first 3 interviews, and her story was the same. Then, Hutchinson, around April 2022, then she started to talk to Griffin. Following her second transcribed interview, Farah Griffin and Hutchinson, they knew each other from their time working together in the White House. So like, oh, hey, you backstabbed Trump, so how about I join you? Like, yeah, come over. Farah Griffin was one of the first former Trump administration officials to publicly criticize Trump in January and was publicly working with Liz, BFFs. When Hutchinson reached out to Griffin, Clavicle Girl says, I wonder if she'll talk to me. She invited Hutchinson over to her Georgetown townhome to talk. Yeah, why don't you come over here? I'll tell you how it's been for me when I stabbed him in the back. You should do it too. It's great. Everyone loves us. Media. I'm going to get a show on The View. Like, you can't even believe it. I'm going to have book deals. Like, I got more followers than you'll ever know. And Cassidy's just like, wow, that sounds great. Yeah, I'll have another glass of wine. That evening, Hutchinson told Griffin she had more information. She says, well, now that you think about it, I do have another story. I remember Trump grabbed a clavicle in the beast on that day. Suddenly it came out. She had more information that she could provide the select committee, right? So they're having wine night and she says, yeah, I think I remember something I can give, because she's saying you need something useful, according to statements by both Hutchinson and Griffin. Now, during their conversation, Griffin agreed to, quote, contact Liz Cheney on Hutchinson's behalf about scheduling another interview. Yeah. Now, her new testimony would include a never-before-heard story that alleged that Trump agreed with rioters who chanted, hang Mike Pence, right? Comes out of nowhere. She just pulls it out. Well, yeah, I did hear that, actually. Trump said, yeah, hang him. According to the text messages, though, that appear to be from the encrypted messaging app called Signal that we have somehow, I don't know how we got them, between Hutchinson and Griffin obtained by the subcommittee. How? No idea. Cheney agreed to communicate with Hutchinson through Farah Griffin, right? So Cheney's like, I can't talk to you. That's insane. That's like a prosecutor talking to your defense client, which would be lunacy. However, she did. It appears that Cheney, that shows indicia, right? She knew specifically, probably shouldn't have been doing that. That's why she needed to go through a third-party intermediary. It's a guilty mind. However, it appears that Cheney knew communicating with Hutchinson while Hutchinson had a lawyer and was a subject of the investigation without going through Hutchinson's attorney. She knew it would be unethical. That's why she was having Farah do the dirty work. This is evident by Griffin's text to Hutchinson that Cheney's one concern was so long as you have counsel, she can't really ethically talk to you without him. Oh, so she even admitted it. So here is what one of the text messages says. This is Clavicle Girl on the right. She sends a text message Thursday, April 28th. Hey, Alyssa, it's Clavicle Girl. I know you're busy, but is there a chance? Actually, that voice is giving her way too much energy and enthusiasm. It's much more drone and monotone than that, but you'll have to fill in the gaps. It says, I know you're busy, but is there a chance you've touched base with anyone regarding what we talked about on Tuesday night? It's Thursday, so wine night was Tuesday night, and Wednesday goes by. She's thinking about it. She's like, gosh, I really need to know. Should I text her? Should I not text her? Should I text her? Should I not text her? Okay, I'll just do it. Sends her a text. I know you're busy. Alyssa responds back, hey, yes, so I reached out to Liz Cheney. She agreed to keep our convo totally confidential, okay? So your lawyer will never know. Liz said that she admires you and could tell that you wanted to do the right thing from your testimony. Her one concern was so long as you have counsel, she can't really ethically talk to you without him, right? Because you've got a lawyer. so she's not allowed to talk to you. But what she suggests is a follow-up with you, with your lawyer, that she and Dan George can lead. Probably can do without all the other members and without Tim. So maybe talk to your lawyer and then they can come and help. So Liz Cheney loves you. You're super good. You're really special. And she knows that you want to tell the truth. Ugh. Cassie's like, yeah, I do want to tell the truth and be like Alyssa. Does that help at all? Says Alyssa. Alyssa tells her, I can tell she really wants to work with you and is just trying to figure out the right way to do it because it's unethical and it shows a conflict. It shows that Liz Cheney is trying to rig the investigation by going after a key witness that she's going to present in the trial and manipulate her evidence when she's got a lawyer. So here's what Alyssa gets back from Cassidy. Clavicle Girl responds, says, I mean, do you think this is actually of interest to her at this point? Or is it moot? Like, have they moved beyond it? She's like desperate, right? Like, do I even have anything of value? They're like, yeah, you're going to make up whatever. Of course it's going to be valuable. Alyssa responds, oh, it's very much of interest. Okay, are you kidding me? Like, our whole scam is falling flat right now. And we need something good. A clavicle attack is great. Yes. Trump said he wanted Mike Pence hung. Yes, that's great. What else you got? So Cheney basically wants to structure it in a way that you are comfortable and wants to make sure it's clear. If you speak to them again, it's them asking, not you. So you don't get in trouble. All right. And then that message goes bye-bye. So we don't know where the rest of that went. But that was that message that we just read. Now, for nearly a month, Griffin acted as an intermediary between Cheney and the Select Committee and Clavicle Girl. As an intermediary, Griffin helped coordinate Hutchinson's third transcribed interview. And guess who didn't come to that third interview? The lawyer. Without his knowledge, okay? These people are such scammers. They know he's got a lawyer. They're talking about his lawyer. They're saying, we want to do this with your lawyer present. They bring in, oh man, they're such scammers. They bring her in without her lawyer there. During the same time, Griffin and Hutchinson discussed the optics of Hutchinson leaking her new information to the press instead of providing it directly to the committee. Well, what if I just share this with the New York Times? Hutchinson and Griffin also colluded to create a false story about why Hutchinson needed to do a third transcribed interview for the committee to feed to Pasatino, the lawyer. Presumably this was done at Cheney's direction because it was Cheney herself who led the third transcribed interview of Hutchinson. Yeah, I'll take care of that one. Just make sure the lawyers aren't there, says Cheney. Cheney knew that Pasatino represented her leading up to and during the interview, and they interviewed her anyways without the lawyer and made up other stories. Oh, no, you don't need to come. She's just going to come and answer a question about something. Okay. In her May 17th, 2021 transcribed interview, Hutchinson testifies to now a new, suddenly, series of uncorroborated and unverified stories that conveniently fit Liz Cheney's narrative exactly, that Trump is dangerous and he's solely responsible for January 6th, right? Suddenly everything changed. And we saw her come out there. We were mocking her, I think, in real time. Despite already testifying to the Select Committee twice, Hutchinson never mentioned this new information, suddenly realized. Then, after her third transcribed interview, Hutchinson contacted Cheney directly. So they got cell phone numbers there, and now they're BFFs. While Hutchinson revealed the general timing of these conversations in her book, the extent and content of their communication was never previously disclosed. When Hutchinson texted Cheney, she was still represented by her lawyer, Pasatino. Cheney knew it, didn't care. Cheney and Hutchinson communicated directly for days without her lawyer's knowledge. So, and I don't know if Pasatino has responded to this or will respond to this and corroborate any of this, say, yep, no, I had no idea, or what. But subsequently, Cheney then provided Hutchinson with new attorneys. Said, get rid of your old lawyer, okay? He's not letting you lie. But these other people will take really good care of you. They're from Alston and Bird, pro bono. You don't even have to pay for them. Just switch lawyers and you'll be on our team. So here is now the text message to Liz Cheney. And so the messages with Alyssa were April 28th. So we fast forward, we're now in June. A couple months go by. To Liz Cheney from Cassidy Hutchinson, Clavicle Girl. Hi, Liz. Hi, this is Cassidy Hutchinson. I'm sorry for reaching out this way, but I was hoping to have a private conversation with you, parentheses, soon, if you are willing, period. Liz says, I would be happy to. Let me know what time works for you. That was easy. Liz Cheney's like, what? Heck yeah. What's up? So Clavicle Girl says, hey, Liz, I'm free all day for a call or in person, whichever you prefer. I really, really appreciate this. What is she so desperate over? What's going on? Is this a money problem? Is this a lawyer problem? What's up? I really, really appreciate. Why? What do you need? Why do you appreciate this? Okay, Liz Cheney should be appreciating you. What is so urgent here? So guess what? Liz Cheney calls her 12:13. She sends a text message at 11:59. Hey, call me whenever. Liz Cheney calls Clavicle Girl, doesn't answer it. Derp. Maybe she was making up other stories at the time. Busy talking to Alyssa about what they can make up. But anyways, misses the call. Liz Cheney then texts her back and says, hey, give me a call when good for you. At 12:14. Clavicle says back, is now okay at 12:30? She says, sorry, can we aim for 1, says Liz. Clavicle says, that works. I'm sorry I missed you. Then at 1:03, Clavicle says, please call when you have a moment. I'm worried to initiate the call in case you're tied up with something, like trying to rig the country. Liz says at 1:14, okay, we'll call shortly. Sorry, got stuck on another call, probably with her father, Dick. Then they send a message. And Clavicle sends a message from her lawyer to Liz? Ugh. Clavicle screenshots her lawyer and sends it to the enemy, Liz Cheney. Unbelievable. Clients sometimes, man, I tell you what. Nothing you can do. What can you do? Steph in Pasadena, he's like fighting for his client. She like takes a screenshot, sends it to Liz Cheney. He's like, all right, I quit this whole thing. What? So she says he sent her the message. So Clavicle's lawyer sends Clavicle a message. With the DOJ refusing to hold Mark and Scavino in contempt, and with the committee talking about you to the press again, I don't see why we do anything more with them, right? He's telling her, we're done, all right? They're threatening you. He says, there is a small element of risk by refusing to cooperate, but I think it's the best move for you. Do you agree, Clavicle? Okay, these people are not holding Mark. They're not holding Scavino in contempt. They're threatening you guys. They're coming after you. There's a small element of risk. They might try to, but what do you think? Do you agree? Lawyer, text message to client. Cassidy, Clavicle, responds and says, did they reach out about a live hearing? I don't want to gamble with being held in contempt, Stefan. I'm sorry, but I just don't think I can do it. Have they reached out about a live hearing? They have not. So he says, so right, he's a lawyer. So, okay, that's fine. Right, we'll do your wishes. If you want to go and testify or comply or whatever, right? I guess the next messages would be developing that. But she screenshots it and sends it to Liz. Which it's her communications to share with Liz, but Liz is a disgusting person for not disclosing this to Stefan. Maybe she did. Or to anybody else. So the lawyer is telling her we shouldn't testify in front of Liz Cheney. She's a partisan hack and she's illegitimate. So she sends that message to Liz. Liz says, "Can I give you a call tomorrow?" She's busy. Of course. Clavicle girl is freaked. Is everything okay? Oh, she's probably just totally freaked. No, Liz Cheney's going to respond to you, Clavicle, and explain to you what's going on. No, everything is not okay. Okay. We're trying to conduct an insurrection against our own government, which is creating a fake hearing and conduct show trials so that we can smear the exited couped president immediately so he doesn't regain power somehow. So no, everything's not okay. Okay. I'm talking to my dad. I'm freaked out about it. Nancy Pelosi's over here. We've got Chuck Schumer. Everybody's drunk. Nobody knows what's going on. Obama's flipped out, right? The whole thing. It's madness. And so everything okay? No, it's not. So we'll see. We go back to the report, and that was the exchange. Now, days after Cheney began communicating directly with Hutchinson, Hutchinson fired Pasatino and hired Cheney's recommended attorneys, Cheney's bestie lawyers, who agreed to represent Hutchinson for free. No money at all. Yeah, we'd love to. Happy to do it. Within a few weeks, Cheney brought Hutchinson in for a secretive fourth transcribed interview. And during this fourth interview, only Cheney and one other committee council member were present. That's it. 2 people of the J6 committee. In addition, they had Hutchinson's new lawyers, which were really Liz Cheney's lawyers. During this fourth transcribed interview, Hutchinson testified to some of her most outlandish new claims that she made up at wine night with Alyssa. The subcommittee was only able to obtain a limited number of text messages from Hutchinson and Griffin. And I don't know how the hell they got those messages, but that's amazing. But Cheney's influence on Hutchinson is apparent from that point forward by her dramatic change in testimony, right? Everything flipped. And her eventual claims against Trump using second and third hand accounts. Specifically, Hutchinson claimed that Tony Ornato, told Hutchinson that, so it's hearsay, right? Told Hutchinson that Trump lunged towards the driver of his car after he was denied their request to go to the Capitol. So Trump says, "Take me over there. We're going to seize power. I'm going to walk in there and the country's mine," or something. Doesn't go to the Capitol. Trump flips out, lunges up at the top of the beast, grabs the steering wheel, grabs the clavicle. She said, grabbed him by the clavicle, like use that word. This story has never been corroborated and, in fact, was directly refuted by both Secret Service agents in the vehicle with Trump that day. Never happened. Made it up. Liz Cheney made it up with her, fired her old lawyers, gave her Liz's lawyers, and then had a secretive hearing before spreading this lie to all of us. In her book, Cheney wrote that it would compromise the Select Committee's investigation if they were seen advising witnesses and suggesting new legal representation. But Cheney failed to say that in her own book that she herself gave Hutchinson new lawyers who would represent Hutchinson for free. Now, Hutchinson told a conflicting account of Cheney's role. In her book, she wrote that Cheney herself advised Hutchinson to change attorneys and even provided a list of recommended attorneys. Here's what Cheney wrote in her stupid book. She said, "Not long after this third interview, Cassidy contacted me directly. She told me that she was inclined to represent herself going forward. And I was very sympathetic to her situation," said Liz, "but I did not want our committee to be advising her on what she should do next." Yeah, right. You had multiple phone calls with her. "I told Cassidy that she could consult another lawyer and seek his or her independent advice on how best to move forward. Every witness deserves an attorney who represent their interest exclusively, just like Stephan did." Ultimately, Cassidy decided to retain 2 new lawyers, both with prior experience in the DOJ. Those were Liz's lawyers. One had been appointed a few years earlier by Trump to oversee the Justice Department. The other had served at Justice during Bush. They represented Cassidy pro bono without charging her anything. Why would that be? Because they're just good people. However, Hutchinson told a conflicting account of Cheney's role. In her book, Hutchinson said that Cheney herself advised Hutchinson Cassidy Clavicle Girl to change the attorneys and even gave her a list of recommended people. Right? There it is. In Cassidy's book, she said, well, I asked if she or any other members of the committee staff might know an attorney who would be willing to put me on a payment plan, because lawyers are expensive. Liz said that she would follow up. Let me check. I'll speak with a few colleagues about this. Now, the next day, she called me and provided me with contact information for multiple attorneys at various firms, which is good practice. You should recommend 3 people, let's say, for recommending somebody, so it doesn't look like it's a quid pro quo type of thing. And I thanked her, and I promised that I would figure out a way to do the right thing, regardless of the outcome of the search for new lawyers. I could not find the words to tell her that the committee was giving me one of the greatest gifts I could have received, which was hope. And so I have a little empathy for Cassidy, because this January 6th committee, right, it was multiple years of them. Cassidy was living in fear, man. And she shouldn't have buckled and lied, because that's a dishonest thing to do and a dishonest way to live. And there's no evidence to support her claims. And so she's really, wrecked her credibility, and she's going to have to live with that indefinitely and live with that lie indefinitely. But she is, I think, pretty satisfied with her new life, her new book. And, she'll probably get a show at some point, sometime when she develops a personality. But in this case, Hutchinson and her testimony was squeezed out of her, right? Think of all the pressure and the threats of jail and prison and all the things, right? So you understand it when people buckle. You wish they wouldn't, but they do. And so she did. Now, we should all observe that and from that flip, appropriately ascribe the due credibility to that flop as it merits. In other words, 0. It should merit no credibility at all. In fact, she should be castigated and called a liar for that. You understand why she did it, but you don't get to come out then and suddenly say that it's not a lie, because nobody has corroborated it. Now, after Hutchinson switched attorneys because Cheney suggested it, the select committee needed to ensure her credibility as a witness and explain why she changed her testimony. And so to do this, they had to smear Passatino. They manufactured a story that Passatino gave Hutchinson bad advice, like instructing her to withhold information, to misrepresent her testimony, and even that Passatino, the lawyer, implied that he would help Hutchinson with employment in return for her favorable testimony, right? So now this lawyer is the bad guy. Now, contrary to this, the subcommittee obtained messages between Griffin and Hutchinson where Hutchinson even admits that Passatino was acting in her best interest and that she agreed with his counsel, right? So she, at some point, was a big fan of this guy. He cares about me. He's working hard for me. He cares about my best interest, and she agreed with him. Then she is just getting in a pressure cooker, right? And this happens in criminal cases a lot. It's actually a very interesting thing that happens. You'll see people come into the office. We're going to fight this case till the end of the world. Okay, it might take 18 months to fight it. No problem. We'll be in there. We'll fight. Okay, great. Let's do it. We're going to file all these motions and get these experts, and it's going to take this time and this pre-trial. It's going to be a designated complex case. Well, then, 12 months go by, and it's like just a grind, okay? The justice system is just a grind. 12 months go by, that person who came in 12 months earlier without the energy, with all the energy and the stamina in the world to fight, don't have it anymore, all right? Showing up to court once a month for 12 months, having this pressure, could you go to jail or not? What's the plea deal going to be? You get a plea deal, it's not great. Pressure. What happens if I fight this? It might get worse, might get better, might get worse, right? It's like psychological warfare, which is why you need good attorneys who can help guide you through this. So you can really delegate a lot of that off of your mental shelf and give it to the lawyer so you never have to think about it again. But Hutchinson is in that, right? So eventually she just buckles. She just cracks and flips. But she had admitted that her lawyer was great. The subcommittee has also reviewed relevant documents revealing that both bar complaints filed against Passatino in D.C. and Georgia were dismissed. The bar looked at it, said this guy's great. Instead of Cheney facing scrutiny for her unethical communications with Hutchinson, Cheney used the weight of the select committee to pressure the D.C. bar to investigate her star witness's lawyer. Cheney is as rotten as the rest of them, who use their government positions to go after people's licenses. They're sick, just like Stephen Richer in Arizona. This was all to make Hutchinson seem credible while destroying the credibility of anybody who dissented. And so they had to attack the lawyer because they're sick. Now, here was more of the texts. So now we are back in May. And Alyssa sent this to Clavicle. Alyssa says, okay. That was something Liz's direction. That was at Liz's direction. How do you feel about just doing it with your lawyer, Stefan, but answering more questions? You can handle yourself, and he's just there as a figurehead. Okay, so now Alyssa is telling Clavicle, just get rid of your lawyer, okay? He's just a figurehead. You don't need him. And Clavicle responds and says, okay, and basically give an ultimatum of A, we'll come back, but we need assurance that she won't be called in live, which I don't think they'll give. So Clavicle Girl doesn't want to testify live, it sounds like. Or if you won't give assurance, reissue a subpoena. Says his lawyer, he's not against me complying. He's actually sort of willing to do it because he thinks it builds my credibility as a witness if I go in and testify. But he wants just enough from the committee to balance out the public backlash from the lawsuit and to frame me as super compliant and respectful of congressional subpoenas. So it sounds like a good strategy, right? He's saying, hey, we can go in, if they subpoena you, we'll come in and we can talk about it, but we want to set terms before we come in. So he's going to call Dan George this afternoon. Can you tip off Liz or Dan and see their thoughts? This is crazy, man. She's communicating with the enemy. It's wild, this poor lawyer. Says, I'm personally fine with just Liz and Dan, but I have a feeling he'll want it structured the same as others' depots. But I haven't gotten that far with him. Does that make sense? Yeah, that all makes sense, says Alyssa. I actually agree with Stefan's approach. Wow. And think it's accomplished everyone's goals. Yeah. I am happy to tip Liz off. Ugh. Just breaks my heart. This guy's fighting. My heart's breaking for Stefan. He's you're like, dude, really? You're going to send this to Liz? I'm heartbroken for him. And for what it's worth, I don't think you are close to front in line to testify live, right? They're not going to bring you in live, but it might be worth asking for the commitment. My guess is Stefan cares about protecting Trump. Your issues were more with Meadows and folks around him, and you were simply being ho-eat. Oh, honest. You were simply being ho-eat. I mean, honest. Exactly. He doesn't want me to stonewall the committee now over this. I think he wants to balance the perception in Trump world. If I just go back voluntarily versus under a subpoena, right? So she's not going in to cooperate, but if she gets a subpoena, then the Trump side will say, well, she's under a subpoena, right? She's not voluntarily helping Liz. She got a subpoena. What do you expect? But he's probably going to be a little bit less friendly to DG when he talks to him. He probably won't outright tell him to resubpoena me. So it may be helpful for DG, the other person, to throw in if they do that. Well, if you don't voluntarily come in, we'll reissue a subpoena and then he'll take it. Right? So she's giving the other side negotiating tactics to use against her own lawyer. It's just terrible. So the report continues and wraps up saying, look, during the select committee's sensationalized primetime hearings, Hutchinson was their star witness, testified under oath. She saw and heard about Trump, she didn't see it, heard that Trump had lunged at the steering wheel in the presidential SUV and got in a physical alteration with the committee, with the Secret Service driver. Now, their subcommittee's initial report shows nobody corroborated this. Instead, they directly refuted it. The committee was in possession of those accounts, but they chose to hide them, and instead they promoted Hutchinson's scandalous lie, because that's what they do. And this is from the actual report that was released by this House, 39-pager. It says the testimony of 4 White House employees directly contradicts claims made by Cassidy. That was included in the final report. None of the White House employees corroborated Hutchinson's sensational story about Trump lunging for the steering wheel of the beast. And remember, Hutchinson just heard about it. She didn't see it. And that was good enough for them. However, some witnesses did describe President Trump's mood after the ellipse. So it's improbable that other employees would have heard about the mood, right? So everybody's hearing about the same things, but only one person heard about the clavicle attack. No one heard about Tony Ornato or the White House Chief of Staff for Operations told her after returning to the White House. But the committee said it regarded it as valid. It had no reason to conclude that she invented this, but it was all made up. Nothing corroborated Hutchinson's testimony. Everything was an entirely different version of the events, but the committee shoved it in the report anyways because they're lying propagandist hacks. And so Trump was out today with Bloomberg talking about January 6th. And as usual, the interviewer is going hysterical about January 6th, insurrection nonstop. And listen to the crowd. They are laughing at him. They're mocking them because they're tired of this insurrection fake narrative. It's not reality. It didn't happen the way they say it happened. It was a riot. They got back that same night and voted Joe, an illegitimate person, into the presidency. And we all sat there and watched it.
Only 3 weeks to go to the election. Will you commit now to respecting and encouraging a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, you had a peaceful transfer of power.
You had a peaceful transfer of power. You had a peaceful. Come on, President Trump. You had a peaceful transfer of power compared with Venezuela, but it was by far the worst transfer of power for a long time.
Thank you. I appreciate that because this is what they like to do. This is what they like to do.
The question, President Trump, is would you respect the decision?
When I found out about this interview, I did a little check. He's a man that has not been a big Trump fan over the years. So I had a choice. Do I do this interview or not? I'm glad I did it. But do I do this interview or do I disappoint a lot of people? Because I know a lot of people in the audience. But his view is very different than mine. Let me just say.
I'm asking you a question, President.
We had a term. Peacefully and patriotically. These were people. If you think an election is crooked, and I do, 100%.
It was.
If you think the day it comes when you can't protest, you take a look at the Democrats. They protested 2016. They're still protesting it. Nobody talks about them. But if we protest, we want to have honest elections.
They protest everything. Hillary's still crying about it. The Russians in 2016. They were crying when George Bush won. Stacey Abrams cried about when she lost. It's constant. So the Republicans complain about the CIA rigging it, the FBI censoring us, all the rules being changed on the back of COVID, and many other problems. And suddenly, it's an insurrection, even though there's video montages of Hillary Clinton whining about it for 20 minutes that Russians stole the election from her. So President Trump out there getting into it with Bloomberg, and you heard the crowd there. The crowd at the opening saying, no, we did have a peaceful transfer of power. Trump left January 20th. Biden came in, and then they charged him with crimes for taking his own documents out of the White House because they're maniacs. It was perfectly peaceful. And it was like Venezuela? No. You know what's like Venezuela? The Democratic Party prosecuting him 4 times in 4 different locations on rigged charges to try to take him out. It's Democrats like Jenna Griswold from Colorado trying to throw him off the ballot. That is like Venezuela. Trump is trying to restore actual justice in America again. And we're excited that he's going to win and do it. All right. And so now let's turn our attention over to Fani land because we're going to Georgia. Oh, it's the gift that just keeps on giving. And here is the story. Nathan Wade was deposed by Congress, and Fani did not want it to happen. And we're going to wait for the details to see what the full depo looked like, hopefully when the House releases the transcripts. But Fani was freaking out as Nathan Wade was getting ready for his testimony. She sent 2 letters in that we're going to read through. One to Nathan Wade himself. Fani Willis sent a love letter from Fani T. Willis, the district, to Mr. Nathan Wade, a message of love. Oh, isn't this just beautiful? Wow. So romantic. And she said, you better shut your mouth. Do not even think about speaking to any of our highly sensitive and confidential materials. Otherwise, you're sleeping on the couch when you get home. And so Fani Willis signed this one. We'll read through it. She also sent another one over to Jim Jordan. This one has less of a romantic vibe to it. You don't really see any hearts here. But Jim Jordan also got one. And we'll see what Fani said over to him. Then we've got some more updates in Georgia. But here's the background. Apparently Nathan Wade showed up today. There was a question about whether that was going to happen or not. He got a subpoena and he was there. Wade is the subject of one of many investigative threads that was launched. And ahead of his testimony, Fani sent a bunch of letters out. Now, apparently this took place today, and not much in this story about what actually happened there. But he did step down and he did appear for a deposition. That's the extent of it, right? He appeared for a deposition. So what was said there, who knows? The story didn't report anything on that, but Fani didn't want him to say anything and sent 2 letters in. So from Fani Willis to her lover, Mr. Nathan Wade, Fani writes, "Dear Mr. Wade, baby, I write to you in my official capacity as DA." And he's like, wait a minute. We're keeping it professional here? Don't get, I love it when you get all serious with me. And on behalf of my office regarding a recent subpoena you got from Jim Jordan. Now, as you know, Nathan, I hired you and paid you $700,000 to interfere with the 2024 election in America. That investigation led to the indictment of Trump and many others that we have rigged to take him out. So she says, I write to remind, I might have changed that paragraph up a little bit. I write to remind you of your continuing obligation not to disclose, Nathan, don't you dare say any confidential information about what we did during our lunch meetings together. You better not say what our work product was. You're in big trouble because these are ongoing criminal matters on which you worked while you were working for me, including information that's protected from disclosure. And don't share the photos I sent you either. Now, to that end, this letter should serve as formal notice that my office is asserting all legal protections and privileges over information you obtained when Nathan Wade was working for Fani. Now, as the special counsel, Nathan, of our investigation into Trump, you have knowledge of highly sensitive and confidential information, and you better believe that's true. That is one of the truest things I've ever heard from Fani. Yeah. The disclosure of which could interfere with everything Fani's doing. So do not release those photos. This includes knowledge of key evidence, confidential attorney communications, legal theories, analyses, prosecutorial recommendations, and other things. So given this, Fani says, Fani is concerned that questions posed to you, Nathan, honey, by the committee could implicate several significant established privileges and confidentiality agreements. This includes preserving the secrecy of grand juries. Very important here. Fundamental principle. And so they would also ask you about our attorney-client privilege and our very long lunch meetings and work product privilege when he came over to review her files. Now, it's the responsibility of Fulton and its employees to protect this sensitive information. And as a former contracted prosecutor with this office, this remains your responsibility as well, buddy. And as you are undoubtedly aware, the sharing of this information violates Georgia's professional ethics rules, which they don't care about at all. Fani Willis is threatening Nathan Wade with Georgia professional ethics rules. That's rich. Incredible. You know, Nathan, you could be violating your ethical obligations if you do this. He's like, Ethic rules? What are those? Including special rules applicable to prosecutors. After withdrawal from such representation, attorneys are still required to protect confidentialities. And since the committee's demand for your testimony would require you to discuss these things, we previously asked the committee to withdraw its demand to interview you. And if they're unwilling to do so, then come up with an integrity agreement. They've refused our requests. Now, the Fulton County office will continue to seek an agreement with them. But however, in the absence of such agreement, all right, Nathan Wade is going to get told by his girlfriend right now. Oh, man. Guys hate this, but here it comes. Fani Willis said to Nathan, I am directing you as the former special counsel to my office, Nathan, to refrain from answering any of the committee's questions related to your role into our criminal investigation of Trump. Man, Nathan just got told he is on thin ice over there. It is incumbent upon you and your counsel to guard against the unauthorized disclosure of any evidence that you got from our work together that I've outlined in this letter. Now, I also understand that the committee has expressed interest in questioning you about the office's receipt and use of federal grant funds. Now, I do not believe, honey, that you possess any personal knowledge on this subject, as you were not funded by that money. You got other money from Georgia that they ripped off from their taxpayers, not federal money. And so this office has no objection to you providing relevant information that you don't know any of this stuff. By allowing you to share relevant personal knowledge about these funds, the office does not waive any privileges because you have no knowledge. And finally, I wish to remind you, Nathan, honey, baby, about our ongoing prosecution. The criminal efforts to undermine Georgia's election not only shook the foundations of our state's democracy, but also endangered public servants and election workers who are brave enough to stand up for the rule of law. As long as I'm District Attorney Fani, I will continue to do everything in my power to protect the integrity of this criminal investigation. My legal duty to protect the secrecy has been bestowed upon both of you and I by federal, local, and state law. And I have no interest in waiving this legal responsibility on behalf of my office. And I'm confident, Nathan, that you will do the same. Yours in service, Fani T. Willis. Also, grab some milk on the way home and some Grey Goose. All right. So we're living in bizarro land where this is just not laughed at completely by every serious attorney anywhere, because they were lovers. Okay. They were lovers. They were creating a relationship that was exploitative and created a conflict of interest in the criminal prosecution and for the state of Georgia. And they should have been laughed out of the bar for lying to the judge directly to their face and fraudulently creating forms to cover up this relationship. But no, now she sends him a love letter. Shut your mouth. Don't say anything about our corruption and just let Congress burn itself out. So Fani sent a letter to Jim Jordan too. She says, all right, Jim, guess what? I'm Fani and I can do whatever I want, so why don't you just shove it? I'm concerned that your demand, Jim, for Nathan's testimony, my lover, would force him to improperly divulge confidential information. And he's an honorable lawyer. And so he's been informed, Jim, that Nathan is not going to answer any questions about any information about his role in our prosecution. Now, as former special counsel, Mr. Wade has sensitive knowledge about my indictment, including evidence that's all protected. Georgia protects it, so does Chief Justice Robert. Now, there are extremely compelling reasons, Jimbo, why Congress should avoid, and many have, interference with ongoing criminal matters. Asking witnesses to share legally protected non-public information is going to cause them to violate the rules. And in my previous letters, I've explained why we're not complying with you, and the request is reasonable. Others have blocked depositions, and to date, you've refused our reasonable requests. And so now we are not waiving any of our rights or privileges, and Mr. Wade is not going to answer your questions. And so to that end, I have ordered my boyfriend not to answer any questions from you, Jim, about his role. As long as I'm DA, I'm going to protect my office, my legal duty. I have no interest in waiving this for your politically motivated tactics. Yours in service, Fani Willis to Jim Jordan. And I wonder what Jim Jordan's going to do about it. I'd be pretty unhappy if I was a powerful congressman and I kept having people who are using federal funds to prosecute political opponents in America spitting back in your face when you have the power of the purse in Congress and you do nothing about it. But we'll see what this Congress does. So Nathan Wade did testify, did do a deposition, and we're excited to see what Congress was able to get out of him. Hopefully Jim Jordan and the Judiciary Committee release the transcripts ASAP so we can get to the bottom of what's happening between these two who launched a criminal prosecution of a president without any historical precedent for doing so, utilizing RICO and criminalizing a whole swath of conduct that's not criminal at all. And they did it for their own self-interest in violation of the law. And so we should get to the bottom of it, and we should have answers before the election. We'll see if Congress gets it. All right, and we've got one final story, sticking with Georgia, because it's Georgia, you know, it's like nonstop out of there. We even talked about Georgia this morning on our members only stream. It's like nonstop. But now we also have this story. A judge in Georgia is now ordering the election to be certified. If you are at the county level, you're working in the election operations at the board, you find that the election is riddled with fraud, you say, you know, we're going to investigate this and not certify this just yet until we can investigate it a bit further. Nope, can't do that now. It's de facto certification. It's almost like the election has already been certified and it's not even happened yet. What is certification? What does it mean if you don't actually do any certifying at all? Well, let's see what the judge said. But this is what the report says that certifying elections is a required duty, and they're not allowed to refuse to finalize the results based on suspicions of miscounts or fraud. So you don't actually check. He rejected claims, the judge's name is McBurney, saying that Georgia law requires certification and there is no discretion to challenge it. So it's a pre-election certification before the election even happens. It's just ministerial. There really is no certifying happening at all. It's just stamp it. Votes come in, there's a final tally. That's the end of the game. Take it or leave it. Actually, you have to take it. You can't leave it. No matter what happens, it's being certified. Here's the final order. They say in this second lawsuit, Adams, the person who is now suing Fulton County, is a member of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections. She is seeking a judgment that her duties, including certification of the election results, are discretionary, and that as a superintendent, she's entitled to, quote, full access to what she identifies are election materials. Now, they had a bench trial in a couple of other cases. And by the way, just zooming out on this, we talked about a few of these Georgia lawsuits here, but there is a slew of them. There's like 7 or 8 of them that have been filed very rapidly, all suing the Georgia State Election Board and many other entities. Now, on October 1st, the court held a bench trial on their claims, and having considered the record, among with many other briefs that were filed, Georgia grants and denies in part the relief that is being pursued. The claim is brought. They say there is standing here. And let's talk about the controversy. Put in plain terms. Here's the breakdown. They say the person suing is saying that it is proper for her as a co-election superintendent who has taken an oath. I swore an oath My oath is to prevent any fraud, deceit, or abuse, to exercise discretion in certifying the election. A conclusion, which is, if correct, would allow her to refuse to certify if she believed the results to be incorrect or not sufficiently reliable to merit certification. And yet plaintiff has been threatened with civil litigation and even talked about being referred for criminal prosecution if she does not auto-certify the election results. Right? People are saying, you don't have a choice. You better certify that. So when we fill it with a bunch of fake ballots and you catch it, tough. You have to certify it anyways. Outcomes which may be entirely appropriate if the superintendent's role in certifying the results is mandatory and she fails to do so. Right? So we need to know, what do I do? Her demand for a declaration must be met so that she and others know their authority. So the judge breaks it down. Now, although the right to vote is fundamental, forming the bedrock of our democracy, he quotes a case, it is also clear that states are entitled to broad leeway in enacting reasonable legislation to make sure elections are conducted appropriately. It needs to be reasonable, even-handed legislation. And however, the certainty of the electoral process that these laws have long brought to Georgia's voters has begun to unravel as key participants in the state's election management system have increasingly sought to impose their own rules and approaches that are either inconsistent or flatly contrary to the letter of these laws. This case is one of those instances, says the judge. Now, election superintendents play, and this is happening all over the country, and by the way, this is largely being carried out by Democrats. Just look at the people who are changing the election manuals to support their efforts, like not checking to match ID numbers on Uokava ballots in Pennsylvania. Just one example. Election superintendents play a central role in election management, says the judge. The importance of their position is matched by the scope of their authority. Here's what they do. They decide the sufficiency of nomination petitions. They publish notices. They select polling places. They equip polling places. They appoint poll workers. They do a bunch. In other words, superintendents and their staff are rule writers, they're personnel trainers, they're managers, they're logisticians, they're marketers, they're accountants. Much of what they do is left to their broad discretion, but not everything. Some things an election superintendent must do, and must do in either a certain way or by a certain time, and they have no discretion to do otherwise. So they can do a bunch of things like all this stuff, right? Review and certify election results in their jurisdiction. That's part of their responsibilities. And certification is one of those things. Now, after the polls close on the day of the election, Georgia law, they write, says the superintendent shall publicly commence the computation and canvassing of the returns. Shall. Okay. Computation and canvassing. Now, the superintendent has the discretion to do this canvassing where she wishes and largely how she wishes, but do it she must. And when she is done, she shall tabulate the figures for the entire county, municipality, and sign, announce, and attest the same. So, right, that's the Georgia law. They're saying it says you shall publicly begin the computation, and when you're done, you shall tabulate the figures and attest the same. Now, in performing this computation, so they're saying it's mandatory, right? They have to return a result. Now, in performing this computation, it says the superintendent must, in the language shall, must compare the returns with the number of voters in the precinct and the number of votes cast. This is not an optional task. The superintendent has a statutory obligation to do this cross-checking. And if there is a nonsensical result, like there's more votes than voters, then they must investigate the discrepancy. She's not free to ignore it. They also must see that the votes shown by each absentee ballot are also added to the return received for the precinct. So the superintendent is not free to ignore the ballots, although she may count them as she wishes. Again, discretion. And in the course of her canvassing, counting, investigating, if she discovers what appears to be fraud or systematic error, she must still count all the votes despite the perceived fraud and report the fraud to the appropriate DA. Wow. Who is that DA? Fani! Fani! So, if you find fraud, give it to Fani Willis, who is a fraud. Finally, and commits frauds on her own people. Now, finally, no matter how many poll workers she appointed, what polling places she designated, what advertisements she posted, what training she gave, what color ink she used, all of which are discretionary acts of the superintendent, she shall certify her election not later than 5 p.m. That's what the law says. And there's nothing in the code nor any case that suggests otherwise. It says that she must certify, and she must do so by a time certain. There are no exceptions. While the superintendent must investigate concerns about miscounts and must report those concerns to a prosecutor if they persist, the existence of those concerns, if this person has doubts, if they have worries, we still don't cause delay or decline certification. So you're not actually certifying anything, right? You're just kind of processing the results. It's a misnomer of the word. That is simply not an option for this ministerial function in the superintendent's broader portfolios. This conclusion is not profound. It kind of is, because it means that the election is already valid, even though we haven't had it. It's already certified as valid, like right now, in effect. It hasn't happened, but we cannot reach a different outcome other than the election was valid and certified. Says a discretionary act is one where you have discretions. Election superintendents in Georgia have a fixed obligation to certify election results. So when 2024 happens, comes and goes, and somebody says to you, yeah, but they certified it. You just said, well, they had no choice. It was like they were ordered to certify it. So if it was a free and fair election because a bunch of people at multiple counties investigated it and certified it, no, they didn't. There was no certifying happening at all, okay? The judge admits it's a ministerial function. So if it's riddled with fraud or whatever, it doesn't matter. You still have to approve it. And if there is fraud, all you have to do is just send it over to Fani Willis, okay? And she'll investigate it. So it's all taken care of. Stop your complaining about it. What may confuse the issue for some superintendents is that so much of their role is indeed discretionary. But the existence of the discretion in some roles is not in all roles. And the determination of whether the action is discretionary or ministerial is made on a case-by-case basis. And so the issue here is certification, not the job. And so they have no option here but to confirm it. Now, plaintiff has good reason to seek out this clarity. She was threatened with legal proceedings. Democrats are like, we're going to sue the pants off of you, lady, if you even think about not certifying it. But this goes even deeper. They can be suspended if they fail to perform their duties. Is their duty, Judge, to certify a rigged election? Is that in the rules? Did the duties say that? Even prosecuted as a misdemeanor by Fani if they don't certify. Plus, plaintiff has taken that oath, not only to prevent the fraud, but to perform their duties. And so any uncertainty about what Georgia says is of paramount importance. And so they're looking to other laws that support this effort. The court thus finds the issuance of a declaratory judgment is necessary here. So we're going to do that. An election superintendent role, the court now orders, is in certifying the results. And by the way, this is it's not really certifying anything, just to be clear. They're not like validating anything or checking anything. They can check and investigate it and report it, but then they just stamp it. Whatever comes through, right? If it's a conveyor belt and you have a bunch of bad products that come off, you kick them off the assembly line. Doesn't happen here. One county comes back with fraud, doesn't matter. Count it. It is ministerial, even though many other aspects of her position are discretionary, except that one thing that's very inconvenient for us. Regardless of the characterization of the role, this is mandatory. You do not have a decision to certify or not, so you just have to stamp it. Consequently, no election superintendent, none of them, may refuse to certify or abstain for certifying election results under any circumstance. See that? Just leave that right there. Under any circumstance. So if 10,000 ballots come in with Fani Willis's Grey Goose all over them, totally valid. Let them come through. If in performing her responsibility, they find that there was a problem, let's see. In performing their responsibility to inspect all of these things, it says the conduct of the primaries may be honestly, efficiently conducted. A superintendent, if they determine the need for election information from someone else, it should be provided. All right. Now, in 1946, the voters of Georgia elected Eugene as their governor. He died before he could take office. 3 men vied for the new position. And stuff happened. Someone brought a lawsuit, and it came up. Now, that hypothetical case in that claim has arrived. If election superintendents were, as plaintiff urges, free to play investigator, prosecutor, jury, and judge, and so on, because of a unilateral determination of error or fraud, refused to certify, Georgia voters would be silenced. Voters might be silenced if they're defrauded. You understand that? If there's a fraud that occurs and an illegitimate candidate wins, everybody who voted in that election got defrauded, right? Because it was illegitimate. The wrong candidate got it. So enabling fraud is also defrauding voters. Our Constitution and our election code do not allow for that to happen. And so the certifiers of elections are not certifiers at all. It's already been certified by Judge Robert McBurney. Georgia's election is already amazing. And also, if you have any problems with their elections, just report it to Fani Willis, and she'll make sure she thoroughly investigates it as soon as she's done indicting Nathan Wade in a hotel in Belize. Here's Trump talking about how the Democrats just try to rig everything. They don't even want you to have ID in California. Why is that?
How about this? Gavin Newsom, he's the governor of California.
Newsom.
He signed Newsom, I call him.
Yeah. But do you think...
No, he corrected me. He corrected me. I said, that's the first time I've been corrected.
There are CEOs out here, if they said those sort of things about a rival CEO, they'd be sacked. Do you think it's fine for a president?
But they don't have to survive like me. They don't have to go through what I have to go through. There's never been a president that's been treated like me, so I have to fight my own way.
Well, you made a very good job of...
He signed a bill in California 2 days ago that you don't even have the right to ask a person for voter ID. And if you ask a person for voter ID, of course you have to show voter ID. The only reason you wouldn't do, because they want to cheat. The bill says you cannot, it's against the law for you to ask a person, may I please see your voter ID when he votes? What is our country coming to?
And that's what they want. Structural changes so that they have a benefit. They want tons of unvalidated people to get ballots and to shove them back in favor of the Democrats. That's why they are fighting so hard against any election integrity efforts by the Republicans. And now in Georgia, it's already certified. So congratulations. Your election's already perfect. Hasn't even happened yet, but it's going to be perfect. And every single person at the county level will certify it, or else maybe they'll be prosecuted for trying to run a fair election. That's Georgia. That's Fannyland. All right, let's see what you guys say about this, my friends. If you're just joining us, we had a great stream. We started out the day talking about Cassidy Hutchinson, aka Clavicle Girl, and her text messages with Cheney-Hutchinson-Griffin from The View and Liz Cheney, where they were colluding with each other to create a fake narrative to smear President Trump. That was a real fun segment. We also then talked about Nathan Wade and Fani. Nathan testified, did a deposition today with the Judiciary Committee. And so we read through Fani's panicky letters to her lover saying, do not you even think about talking about this to Jim Jordan. And then we wrapped up the day with this interesting opinion from Judge McBurney from Georgia that says the elections are perfect and amazing. And even if they're riddled with fraud, they're still certified because God bless America. And so now, my friends, let us see what you have to say about this. It is a beautiful Tuesday. I hope your week is unfolding amazingly well and you're accomplishing everything you've set your minds to. We had a great members only stream this morning and we love our membos. Speaking of new membos, Sheila Poo is bringing in some new membos. 5 new membos coming in. Sheila Poo is bringing in Charles Hooser, Ulsterman, John Seaman, Barcaro in the house, and James in the house, courtesy of Sheila Poo. A million hugs to you. Bringing in more membos. Hey, Mark Butcher's here, and this guy's a butcher. Look at that. Nice. We got this one from Mark Butcher, bringing in Adam K. Hold My Halos here. Troll is here. Donna Foster and Janae Rose. Gifted membos, courtesy of Mark Butcher. What's up, Mark? Thanks for being here, my friend, and for bringing in 5 new membos. Hey, Sheila Poo says Trump is magic. He can reach right through that bulletproof glass between him and the driver. All the more reason to vote for Trump. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And his arms are like 7 feet long, too. Like that stretch, like that guy from the Fantastic Four. That Gumby guy. Trump's amazing. And he's also somebody who can just seize power of America by just, I guess, having a 4-hour riot. It's pretty incredible. Thank you for that, Sheila. Hey, Stephen Mosher. That's 2 babies. Stephen Mosher, 2 babies in the house, 18 months as a membo. Thank you, Stephen. Says she's obstructing justice and witness tampering. That's exactly right. And she did it shamelessly. And Cassidy is a liar, too. And she lied for Liz Cheney. It's sick. Sheila Poo. What's up? 5 more membos coming in, courtesy of Sheila. Thank you, Sheila. Crystal La Rosa is here. Keith Bradbury, welcome. Giggy Cats, Bear Arms, and Cyprian Cole. Gifted membos, courtesy of Sheila. Thank you, Sheila, for bringing them in. Hey, Rob is here. Says, Trum Inspector Gadget, Go-Go Gadget Arms. Trump's Go-Go Gadget Arms. Grab clavicle and steering wheel from the back seat of the beast. Turning the car around and heading back to the Capitol. That's what they say happened. Hey, Rob says, someone should contact the state bar, go after Cheney. Get her and her lawyers disbarred. Well, the problem is the state bars are probably filled with a bunch of Cheney fans in there, unfortunately. Lenny Malley says, please smash that like button, baby. Thank you, Lenny. Yeah, we would appreciate that if you see it right there conveniently next to the video. That'd be amazing if you hit that. We'd love you forever. Elena, a.k.a. Nelly, says, thank you so much. Do you have the DOJ against Virginia and Youngkin? Yeah, I think we read that one already. Pretty sure that's on our channel, Elena. I think we did read that one already. Maybe search that. Virginia, Youngkin on our channel. I feel like we read that one already. But yeah, they're being sued. Elizabeth Peters, new membo. I think that was during a live stream last week. I think we covered that one. What's up, Elizabeth Peters? Thanks for becoming a membo. This one from Joe Biden's right side says, I do believe the feds, for example, Congress, supersedes any of your ethical whatevers. LOL. Besides, your ethics are a joke. Talking about Fani, I hope, and hopefully not me, but, you know, anyways. Yeah. Fani talking ethics is hysterical. She'll probably teach a class there in Atlanta, probably some college over there. Government ethics with Fani Willis. It's like that scene from Billy Madison. Hey, Waldo's here. What's up, Waldo? In the house. Good to see you, Waldo. 5 membos coming in. Green Valley, bringing in Green Valley. Kathy Barnett. Loud Eddie, what's up? Jim 3D Prince, that's cool. And John Figuerera in the house, courtesy of Waldo, bringing in 5 new membos. Hey, Super Buff Shaft over on Rumble says, I saw the Arizona Richer videos. All ties into the 2021 audit by the Senate and from Joe Von Pulitzer. People need to watch them both on Rumble. 3 guys wiping out data were caught by the logs in the audit on the Richer stuff. Oh, and this, yeah, the one we talked yesterday where Stephen Richer was trying to get a lawyer fired here because he was retweeting some posts. Good to see you, Super Buff. Yeah, and they're not trustworthy people. They're not in there, in my opinion, in the efforts of free and fair elections. They're there to get their guys and gals elected. Hey, Goofy for Jesus said Lizard Liz Cheney. Snake, great show, great chat. Thank you, Goofy for Jesus. We do have a great chat. You're a part of that, Goofy. Thanks for being here for a baby +1. Great to have you here. Simple Davy Says Roy Barnes is repping Wade while he is in the depot. Oh, the same Governor Roy Barnes who came in and testified at that same trial? Amazing. ELZ says Jim Jordan could use the talents of Joe Sweeney in the questioning of Nathan Wade. Joe Sweeney, yeah, ex-CIA lawyer. I'm sure that would be useful. Hey, Sheila Pooh, 5 more membos coming in. Bringing in Angry Pop, Nate Wilson, Organic Swirls here, M.E., Rocco Rockwell, and Heath Darby. Gifted membos courtesy of Sheila Pooh. A million hugs to you. Thank you, Sheila, for 5 more membos. Hey, this one came in over on Locals. Says, so asking all the lawyers on here. Oh, it's an interesting question. I'm in my early 30s, but I've always considered studying law. I like the idea of interpreting and figuring out if it can be applied to different situations. I love the critical thinking aspect of it. I know it's not glamorous. I know it likely won't pay well at my age, but I'd love some opinions of if it's silly to consider. Please be brutal because I really can't decide if it's worth it or not. Yeah, it's a great question, Alexandra. And I have so many thoughts coming to mind. So first of all, I know you've been a member of our community for a long time, and I know you've always asked and contributed insightfully and asked insightful comments and been an insightful person. And I think that if you're of that disposition, naturally the law is an interesting avenue, right? If you're not somebody that is, like if you don't have that predisposition, I think maybe the law might not be your first choice. So in other words, the interests align there, right? And I think that's a good thing. I think that we need, the other reason I bring that up is because I know, a little bit about you, and I think that we need more good people as good lawyers. And so in that vein, selfishly, I'm encouraging people to become lawyers, because the only way that we can take back the legal profession is by, getting more good people in the law and winning back, that the tides. Just like anything else, we have to convince more of our fellow citizens that there is a better way. And, the law has been totally, I think, commandeered by a bunch of bad actors. And so in order to win in that domain, we need more good lawyers, like we need more soldiers, essentially. So I encourage it in that regard, but that's probably more of a selfish aspect to it. I think the practice of law is incredibly rewarding. It can also be not rewarding. I know a lot of lawyers who've got into the practice and maybe picked the wrong field or really didn't like it, right? It wasn't a good fit for them. They hung a shingle in and out for 2 years. It also depends on what kind of person you are. Are you entrepreneurial? Do you want to hang a shingle? Do you like the idea of being out on your own? Are you more interested in working for a big firm or working as part of a team? Would you prefer to be, I'll just say it, an employee versus your own employer? Because there's a big difference there. And if you want to go work at a big firm, right, it's a lifestyle change. But if you are on yourself, you have a lot more freedom and you can really, kind of develop your own skill set. I think the practice of law is extremely rewarding because you can really make a difference in people's lives. Okay, that in a way that, like I also did catering, for example. And when I was, catering and picking up dishes and stuff, which was a very great, great job, and I'm not belittling that, right, at all. But it's different, right? It's like it's very meaningful because depending on it, maybe you're saving somebody's custody of their kids, maybe you're keeping somebody out of prison. But it can be very rewarding in a different way. It can also be very taxing emotionally in a different way. But you're developing, relationships with people that are very deep, and it can be profound. It can be very profound in a way that I have not had when I was doing other things. So I highly recommend it. I think it's very also, it's like a big puzzle. You practice law, you can practice law for 75 years and still not master it, obviously. And it's a never-ending journey. So I would highly consider it. I don't know that you need to, spend a ton of money. It depends what you want to do. It's really what kind of life do you want to live? I think the law can be a good vehicle to get you there, and we need more good lawyers. So yeah, I think it's a great conversation. I have so many thoughts. We'll have to carry on this conversation in another way. And I know that we have other lawyers too. I'm wondering what Knox would say about this. Depends where you're at. If you're in a big city or small city, do you want to be in a big city or small city? What does your market look like? What kind of law do you like? Do you want to be a transactional lawyer? Do you want to be a litigant, a litigation lawyer? Do you want to be in court? It's a very broad field. So you can really, I think, carve out a beautiful life in the practice of law. But it's a lot of work. You got 3 years of law school, you got bar exam, you got a lot of money, right? It's a lot of expenses and stuff. But I don't think you have to spend a ton of money to get through it. If you can, yeah, anyways. Hopefully there's something in there. I just kind of rambled for, I don't know how long that was, but probably too long. But hopefully that was helpful, Alexandra. Great to see you. And I hope you consider it. You keep considering it, because I think it's a very rewarding journey. And it's a lot of fun. And you can start a YouTube channel too. Hey, what's up? Whoa, Worm Nerd on Rumble says, all this work Robert is doing here and less than 200 rumbles. Are you kidding me, people? Smash that like, thumbs up button. Rumble, 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 rumble. Thank you, Worm Nerd. We appreciate that, Worm Nerd. Yeah, Rumble is also, it also has that nice button right there. And we have some nice friends over there on Rumble. What's up, Slidey Pie? What's up, BJ Hilling? What's up, Rockhound? What's up, JDE Corey? What's up, Neuro D? Super Buffs over there. It's good to see everybody over there. Thank you, Worm Nerd, for that one. Hey, Sheila Poo says, can they appeal this urgently? If there is not an option to not certify it, then certification means absolutely nothing. That's right. That's right. It means nothing at all. Yeah, it's already been certified. It's certified that it's been certified. All right. So the election's perfect. The election's already been perfect. Kamala Harris won. So did Fani Willis. It's already over. Hey, Cliff says, Rob, the judge may be an accomplice to the crime of forcing people to violate their oath to certify fair elections. Horrible. Yeah. And he put in there, you know, if you don't really comply with them, maybe we'll prosecute you too. So certify it. Same thing that Jocelyn Benson did, right? Why are they doing that? Very strange. Hey, Joe Biden's right side says, what I really want to know is how importing all these criminals into our country is not treason, because you're giving them aid and comfort to our enemies. Yeah, well, they call them asylees. See how that worked? So they just changed the word from like invaders or aliens into asylees, and they actually buy them plane tickets now. So they're not enemies in any way, shape, or form. They're just, you know, migrants who just want a better life. That's all. NY says, why use the verbiage certify if it's ministerial? Well, it's to make you think that somebody checked it. That's why. It's propaganda. It's a fake word. It means nothing. In fact, if it's only ministerial, why can the judge just put an order out here that the 2024 results are hereby certified? He just did. Yeah, he just did. We just read it. This ruling makes as much sense as latches. People should know judges are often very, very wrong. Our history is chock full of lame decisions. The weakness here is in this elected judge, in my opinion, is the very root of these partisan decisions. Yeah, it's for all practical purposes, Georgia has already been certified because there's no other outcome for it. As long as they have an election, it will be certified, whether it's fraudulent or not, which means nothing. It's nothing. It's meaningless. Hey, Cliff Norman says, Rob, the judge in Fulton County is channeling Sergeant Schultz. I hear nothing. I see nothing. I know nothing. From Sergeant Schultz. Good to see you, Cliff. David D says, remember when Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid was asked about lying, saying Mitt didn't pay his taxes? His response was, well, it worked, didn't it? Yeah, they're just shameless liars. Harry Reid even did that. Remember Harry Reid from Nevada? What's up, Beezy? 10 membos, gifted membos. Thank you, Beezy. Bringing in True Neutral, Lawful Acts is here. James Hicks, what's up? Psychological Projectionist is here. Neurotic Raven, welcome. Amy Clark, what's up? Danny DeTony. We got Nanny Can and Smoke in the Water, gifted membos, courtesy of BZ. Great to see you, BZ. Thanks for that. 10 membos, welcome. What's up, Goofy for Jesus? Says, can the committee ask Wade about his White House visit? Sure, yeah. If he doesn't answer on privilege, it could prove collusion with the White House. Yeah, I think that they could. I don't know if that was in furtherance, like if Fanny's going to claim privilege over that. I'm pretty sure we know that he went there, right? We definitely know Fani went there. We definitely know Tish went there. I think Wade also went there. So if he doesn't answer on privilege, you're saying that means that the White House was part of the investigation because it's protected, right? I'm trying to think if there's any other because the only, you're right, the only alternative would be he would say, no, I was just there for politics, had nothing to do with the case at all. Oh, so you could tell me more about that, right? And they start talking about that. Yeah, it's a good point. I really want to know what they asked him, but I think they should ask him about that, obviously, and see what he says. Yeah, it's a great point, Goofy. Great question. Great comment. Hey, what's up? LG says, is there a reason we can't sue these judges and states again for disenfranchising us? Yeah, they'll say they've got judicial immunity and they're just doing their jobs, interpreting the law. So you can't sue them for doing the rules, doing the law. If you don't like their judgment, you appeal it, right? That's the remedy, as they'll say. So it's just a generalized grievance. They say the appropriate remedy would be to appeal it. I know it was tried before. Could we sue this judge for disenfranchising us? I feel traumatized. How about emotional damage? Yeah. No, unfortunately. No, we cannot sue him. Won't work. Hey, what's up? JDE Corey says, Alexandra, I am an attorney too. Law is a lifestyle and not a hobby. It does offer the most freedom of any profession. It also is tough, which is why you have to set boundaries. Yeah, it's a fair comment. Yeah, there is a lot of freedom, or there could be not a lot of freedom. It really depends. You can structure a life in the law that serves you, or you can be a servant to, the partners at a law firm. And I've done both. Like, just to be clear about that, I was grinding my first 2 years. Sometimes I'd be in 4 or 5 courts a day, different courts around the valley. I was that busy. I had a caseload. It was great. Anyways, that's another story. But it was not, maybe sustainable, but I was a brand new lawyer. I had a ton of energy. And so I was out there grinding, but it wasn't maybe the healthiest time in my life either, but I learned a lot, and you come out of that. It's like a pressure cooker. So then you can start to grow. It's like any profession. It's a lot of work and it's very rewarding, and I'm grateful for it. So I would love to see you find something that hits like that, for you in your life. Spuds, smash that like button, baby. Like that smash button, rather. Dirty Harry Reid, also called a much younger Kirsten Kiki Gillibrand, the hot senator, yet she never went after him during her Me Too movement. Is that what Harry Reid said? Yeah, he was a strange guy. Remember he had that weird, black eye situation? Very interesting. Okay, so my friends, thank you for sending in those great comments, those great donos, and the lovely super chats. Thanks for hanging with us and being here as we cover all this stuff. Thanks for sharing the channel. Thanks for sharing a video with a friend or family member and inviting them to come join us when we're live so they can join us in the chat. We have some friends on X, including Paul Minot. And here's what Paul Minot had to say. Oh, this was a live quote from Clavicle Girl. This is her. And that was when Mr. Trump went to Kuwait and he unplugged all of the incubators. Trump aborted Kuwaiti babies and insurrected the Middle East? Yeah, he did. Wow. Liz Cheney and Clavicle Girl break another story. I can't believe Trump did that. Unbelievable. All right, so Paul Minot, it's true. That's what she said. Hey, here's one. Judge McBurney was the one who removed Fani from a case. Judge blocks Georgia DA from developing a case against a state senator in the Trump investigation. Yeah, because didn't she show up and appear at his opponent's fundraiser, I think? She was prosecuting the dude and then went to his opponent's fundraiser, something like that. Absolutely nuts. Hey, Just Kevin says, love your videos, Rob. Keeps me informed. Who needs the MSM? That's right. We appreciate that. We don't. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Dapper Dan. Says you rock. Thank you, Dapper Dan. Your mother knows is over there. TJ King. Hey, what's going on? TJ King says, thanks to Robert Gouveia a while ago for pointing out that Colangelo in his closing arguments told a jury the case was election interference, that if not for Trump rigging 2016, he would not have won. So when people asked Trump to recall Dems didn't just deny, they arrested him. That's right. Yeah, this is right. That's exactly right. they said, remember that Trump stole 2016 and they charged him with crimes for that. It's a great point. Great point, TJ King. They definitely did. And David Miller's right. He says, Trump and Elon should be reposting this video. Tell me about it, David. I know. Somebody should tell him. All right. So, my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. We had a couple other donos come in. What's up, Schlista? Says, how do they even have standing in the case with the election certification? Every time in the past, I see the judges say you have to wait until someone violates and they don't certify it before you can even sue. Yeah. Well, that's how it works. You have standing when it's convenient for them, and you do not have standing when it's convenient for them. That's what standing is. It's just kind of a get out of jail free card for judges. Hey, Rob says, actually forcing the election to be certified makes it communism. It's not really an election of the people, for the people, and by the people. It's Marxist of Marxist or Marxist Marxbury rules. Sounds right. And Lady I said, here are a couple funny ones. Some funny ones. Here's one from Kamala. Says, I promised to do everything I could have done, but didn't do, because if I did it, I wouldn't have to promise to do it, even though I could do it now, but don't because I don't know what to do, or I would have done it. It sounds exactly like her. Incredible. Hey, the first interview, Harrison Walls with the emotional support governor is there. She's hanging out with Brett Baer tomorrow, I think. Should we stream that live? I think it goes live at the same time we go live. So I think we'll just stream it live tomorrow. Her interview with Brett Baer. We'll see how it goes. Hey, JD, I'm happy that she's out during doing these interviews. She should be talking more. JDE Corey says, next time you think the judges don't make mistakes, just remember Jesus, okay? As for suing judges, there was a 1983 claims, but it requires heavy lifting to do it. From JDE Corey. Angry Bellsprout says, when will Fani or Nathan catch contempt charges? In Georgia? Never. They'll probably get promoted or run for governor or something. I mean, I don't know what's going on over there. All right, so at least Fulton County's bad. We still want the rest of Georgia to come red. All right, that's what's going to happen. All right, so my friends, that is going to be it for us on the day. It has been a beautiful stream, and it is an amazing Tuesday. And I hope this week you're out there accomplishing all the things you're setting your mind to. The weather's changing, cooling down here a little bit in Arizona. And it's great to be here together with you. Now we're heading over to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. We're going to hang out, debrief a little bit with our membos on Locals and go through some comments and have some fun over there. But that is going to be it for us on the day. Want to thank our amazing mods who have been modding and clipping away for us today. We got John McGarvey, Donut Mind Me. We got Carrie B this morning. K Beans in the house. I see Zulu's over there. And it's playing hookies in the house. It's been a great stream, my friends. And so thanks to the mods and thanks to you for being here and joining us as we go through all of this. We are coming back tomorrow and we're going to get into it again. And I can't wait to do it. But in order to do it appropriately, we're going to need to see you right back here so that together, with your help, we can shine that big, beautiful spotlight of accountability and transparency down upon our system with the hope of finding justice. Make it a beautiful night, my friends. Sleep very well. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Bye-bye.